everyone. Welcome to session 2 of our First Peter Bible study. In today's session, we are going to be taking on First Peter chapter 1, verses 3 through 12. And so I don't want to give too much of an introduction here. Let's just hop on into what the text says. The only thing I did actually want to mention was I want to give just a little bit of a background on the notes that you have for each of these sessions and kind of the way that I've structured them a little bit. So a lot of times with letter A under your Roman numeral, you're going to be able to see a couple of words that really stood out to me. And what I did there was I looked back to the Greek of how those things were defined, used a different lexicon, Strong's Concordance, things like that helps word studies to be able to kind of draw out a little bit more of those definitions. Something important to remember is that the translation that we have in English, our words don't always match the Greek words, oftentimes don't match the Greek words. There's oftentimes a lot more to these Greek words than what our English words can actually portray. And so to look back in the Greek and to really look at definitions of what the actual word meant is a really important part of studying the Bible. And so I try to do that for you. And just with a couple of the words, like I said, you could go really deep with this and do it with almost every single word. And for some verses, that's applicable. But for this study, we just kind of get the top two usually, maybe just one. Sometimes I don't do it at all, just to kind of get a little bit of a overview of the Greek behind this. So, okay, that's all I wanted to bring up. Also, make sure grab your highlighter, grab a pen, grab a notebook. These things are just essential parts of studying the Bible if you've never studied the Bible before. And just mark up things, jot notes down through this teaching, through our group discussion time. Really take this time to be concentrated and focused on what God's sharing to us here in the book of First Peter. So let's start with First Peter chapter 1, verse 3. It says, "Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, who according to his great mercy has caused us to be born again to a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead." This right here is just, oh, fantastic. We have been born again. What have we been born again to? We have been born again to a living hope. Okay, so what does all of this mean, really? And I think the first place that we have to start is really what happens when we find this salvation, when we find this redemption that is mentioned here in this verse, is that it's actually a new birth in the fact that we are a new creature. Paul puts it like this in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 17. "Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creature. The old things passed away. Behold, new things have come." And so when we're looking at this verse, we need to understand just the drastic change that takes place with this new birth. It's not just a slow kind of small progress type of a push. It is a major, massive, intentional change that we can either receive or not receive. And for us who have received it, then we need to walk in the reality of what we've received. And we'll get into a lot more on that as the text goes on here. But another thing that I wanted to highlight was this verse about Jesus being resurrected from the dead. You know, we often place a lot of emphasis on Christ's death on the cross, which we should. It's a very important part of us experiencing salvation. But the resurrection of Christ from the dead is where a lot of that victory came from. You know, if Christ remained dead, then the victory would not be ours. And so I just want to highlight that we need to make sure that we're placing a lot of emphasis on the resurrection from the dead and not just the death itself. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verses 12 through 22. I'm only going to read the start here, but you'll get to see why I think this resurrection of the dead is so important in terms of Christ. "Now, if Christ is preached that he has been raised from the dead, how do some among you say that there is no resurrection of the dead? But if there is no resurrection of the dead, not even Christ has been raised. And if Christ has not been raised, then our preaching is in vain. Your faith also is in vain." So we see right there that this resurrection of Christ from the dead is so important that if it did not happen, our faith would be in vain. Paul here in 1 Corinthians, his preaching would be in vain. That's how essential this is to our salvation. All right, let's move on to verse 4 here. "To obtain an inheritance which is imperishable and undefiled and will not fade away, reserved in heaven for you. This is what we've been born again for. So this is the why or the what reason we have been born again. And what I see here is this amazing, amazing gift that, unlike the gifts we receive here on earth, it's not going to fade away. It is imperishable. It will endure forever. It is far more perfect than anything you have ever experienced. And so take, just the best gift that you've gotten in your lifetime, multiply that by like a billion, and you're still not even close to this reward and this inheritance that is reserved in heaven for us. And so, keeping that in mind, I think we need to make sure that we continually do what Paul has called us to do in the book of Colossians, of setting our minds on things above. So, Colossians chapter 3, verse 1 through 3 says, "Therefore, if you have been raised up with Christ, keep seeking the things above where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God." Here's this part: "Set your mind on the things above, not on the things that are on earth. For you have died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God." And this is just essential Christianity 101 here. We need to make sure that our focus does not remain on our earthly circumstances. Yes, that's a part of just living, but we need to continually be directing our gaze towards heaven and setting our mind on heaven and what's there, what's being reserved for us, the inheritance that we have, that Christ is there, that he can help us through every single trial and difficulty on this side of heaven. And so just realizing that we are not living for this earth, but we are living for this imperishable inheritance is just amazing. And I love how this verse ends. It talks about reserved in heaven for you. I almost think about it like a hotel reservation, where you make that hotel reservation and that room, if it's a good hotel, is reserved for you. No one else can take it, no one else can get it. And so that's what the text is saying here, like, hey, this place, it's been reserved for you now. If you've come to a saving faith of Christ, you have this inheritance. And Jesus sort of ties this in when he's talking about the fact that he is making a place for us, making a mansion, a home for us. Here, I'll read it here in John 14, verse 1 through 3. "Do not let your heart be troubled. Believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many dwelling places. If it were not so, I would have told you. For I go to prepare a place for you. If I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you to myself, that where I am, there you may be also." And so, whatever that place is, I'm not 100% certain, but I know it is being reserved and it is being prepared. So, it has been reserved and it is being prepared by Jesus for me. And that alone will keep me so in line in my spiritual life, knowing that, hey, at the end of the day, once this is all said and done here on the earth, I've got a place that Jesus Christ himself has reserved for me, that he is preparing, and that's where my true home is, and that's where I'm going to spend eternity, billions and billions and billions of years, times a billion, just forever with him in that place. And so that really helps me find proper perspective when I'm looking at different trials and tribulations and things that are happening here on the earth. All right, let's move right in now to First Peter chapter 1, verse 5, "Who are protected by the power of God through faith for a salvation ready to be revealed in the last time." There are three main things I want to emphasize here. First off, we are protected by the power of God. This is a divine power. We don't have to rely on our own physical strength to protect us. We don't have to rely on even the government or the military to protect us. Now, in a sense, they do, and I want to have gratitude and thankfulness to them for that. But at the end of the day, we need to really set it in stone that God is our protector. We are divinely protected. Jesus himself could have called at any time, a whole cohort of angels to come and save him from the cross. But he was like, no, like, this is what God's called me to, and so I'm going to do it. But he knew that he could do that. He knew where his protection would have come from. And so we need to have that same sort of just holy embrace, knowing that God is our divine protection. But Oftentimes, as God likes to do, he likes to partner with creation in order to accomplish his purposes. So, how does he do that in this text? He says that we are divinely protected. How? Through faith. And so, there is an element where we are involved in this process. Now, to be fair, the only reason that we're even able to have faith in the first place is God. So everything always goes back to him. But there is a willing participation on our part in order to experience this protection. It is through our faith. By his grace through faith, we have been saved. And now in this, we can also be protected. Now, I want to end by saying that this can be really easily misinterpreted if we focus only on the protection of here and now in our earthly circumstances. The end of verse 5 clearly says, through faith for a salvation ready to be revealed in the last time. And so, what is this talking about? This is talking about our glorification. And so, we don't have the right to think that our life is going to be just perfect and comfortable with no trials, with no testings, with no difficulties, because that's what this verse says. He's going to protect us from it. No, that's not what this verse is saying. This verse is saying that our home in heaven, our eternity, our eternal destination is protected by God. And so that should be the thing that should continue to give us hope and strength as we face trials this side of eternity. All right, on to verse 6. In this you greatly rejoice, even though now, for a little while, if necessary, you have been distressed by various trials. So here he's bringing up the fact that, hey, you're going to be experiencing trials. So that should be a clear indicator from the verse before it that this is not talking about us not experiencing any trials on earth. He's saying you're going to experience trials, and they're going to be various. We're going to be faced with multiple different trials in multiple different ways. And really, the way that we bear up under that suffering, the way that we really stay strong is through that trust in God, that he is our divine protection, and that one day we will join him forever and forever and ever in eternity. And this phrase, a little while, here in verse 6, really stands out to me. This is something that I try to continually remind myself of as I'm going through a trial. And I think this is sort of what Peter was hinting at to his audience when he was sharing this with them. The trial that I'm experiencing, if I look at it with earthly eyes, it seems impossible to overcome. It seems so big, so devastating, so heart-wrenching. But if I look at it from the eternal perspective, and I look at it as the fact that my life, in James 4, it says, my life is but a vapor. If I look at it from there, then I can say, oh, wow, this is momentary. This, in perspective of my eternal life, is but a blink of an eye. And so, regardless of if I suffer with this problem for a day, a year, for a lifetime, it is still just a flash in the pan in terms of our entire history with God and our entire eternal destiny with him as well. Paul has a great way of mentioning this here in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 17 and 18. He says, for momentary light affliction is producing for us an eternal weight of glory, far beyond all comparison, while we look not at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. For the things which are seen are temporal, but the things which are not seen are eternal. So did you catch that? For momentary light affliction. Now, there were people that were getting martyred in Paul's day. And so this momentary light affliction, looking at it through a humanistic perspective, you're going, that is not momentary. That is not light. That's insane. That's intense. That's crazy. But he's saying, no, you don't understand. What it's producing for you is far better than any of the pain that you're feeling right now, because it's producing for you an eternal weight of glory. So stop looking at the things that are temporal. Stop looking at just your earthly circumstances. Get your eyes on the eternal. Get your eyes on what Christ is going to have in place and in store for you for all of eternity. And that is going to give you great hope and great strength to continue through these momentary and light afflictions. All right, we are cranking away here. We got about 15 minutes left, and we're about halfway through, so we're on time. Chapter 1, verse 7. So that the proof of your faith, being more precious than gold, which is perishable, even though tested by fire, may be found to result in praise and glory and honor at the revelation of Jesus Christ. So, how are impurities removed from gold? They are put in fire. What happens is the impurities melt away, but the gold remains. And so, what he's saying here, when he's talking about the proof of our faith being more precious than gold, is that our faith is also tested by fire. And the fire in this case would be trials, testings, difficulties, problems that we face in our life. That's why we don't want to run from these things, but we actually want to kind of run into them. Now, I'm not going to be someone who's welcoming problems to come on me. I'm not going to be go searching for issues. There's going to be plenty of those things that just happen naturally in life anyways. But if we relate this to what James said in the first chapter of James, chapter 1, verse 2 through 4, I'll read it here just to kind of give us a little bit of an understanding. Consider it all joy, my brethren, when you encounter various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance, and let endurance have its perfect result, so that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. And so you see why trials and tribulations and suffering is not all bad. It's actually producing for us an eternal weight of glory. We read about that in Second Corinthians. And here in James, it says we're supposed to consider all joy when we're facing it. That's just so different from the way I normally think about a problem in my life. Normally, with a problem, I go, God, why are you putting me in this situation? Why am I experiencing this? This is hard. Why are you doing this to me? But no, James is saying, consider it joy. Why? Because it's producing something in you that you would not be able to have had the trial not come. And so, keeping that continued perspective of keeping our minds focused on eternity, keeping our minds focused on the real reason for our life, which is drawing near to God, intimacy with Him, loving Him, being a faithful follower of Jesus, we welcome these trials because these trials mean that, hey, we're going to be refined. Our character is going to be tested, but it is going to be, refined and shown to be true and noble. And we're going to be able to grow in the grace and faith in Jesus. And so all these things kind of combine together to make us actually see trials in a completely different perspective. All right, I don't like to break up the flow here, but I do have to interject something after the fact of me shooting this video. I am doing this study also with a small group of guys, and a point was brought up here in terms of First Peter chapter 1, verses 5 through 7 that really intrigued me, and so I did a little extra research on it, and so I just wanted to present that view along with the view that is being presented in the video, just so that you can get a full understanding and really know that there's other opinions and other thoughts out there when it comes to this. So I'm just going to read the text really quick and hopefully in a couple of minutes just be able to get through this part. So it says, who are protected by the power of God through faith for a salvation ready to be revealed in the last time. In this you greatly rejoice, even though now for a little while, if necessary, you have been distressed by various trials, so that the proof of your faith being more precious than gold, which is perishable, even though tested by fire, may be found to result in praise and glory and honor at the revelation of Jesus Christ. Now, when I first read this, it appeared to me that this text was eschatological, and eschatology basically means the study of the end times. And so when it's talking about the revealing of Christ, when it's talking about the last time, I took that to mean, hey, this is only talking about when Jesus is coming back, his second coming, that stage in history. But a gentleman in my group brought up, what if it wasn't talking about that? What if it was talking about in context to the trials that we were going to be facing? That's more what this verse is about. And so I want to just present that point here really quick. I've seen commentators on both sides of it, so it's going to take the Holy Spirit and us, and maybe there is some sort of parallel truth here. But I honestly want to just come out and say I don't know the full truth on this one, and you'll probably hear that plenty of times from me. So basically, when it's talking about protected by the power of God for a salvation ready to be revealed in the last time, it's talking, if we're coming at it from this point, about the salvation that comes after the trial. So when you're facing a trial and you're enduring it, that salvation would not be the salvation of us going to heaven and being with God forever. It would be getting through that trial and being saved from the devastating effects spiritually that trial could have brought upon us. Then it goes on to verse 6. In this you greatly rejoice, even though now for a little while, if necessary, you have been distressed by various trials. So I presented this as this a little while necessary thing could be a whole lifetime of something that you were dealing with. If we're looking at it from this point of view, that wouldn't be the case. It would say, hey, this little bit, this little time that it's talking about here is the duration of the trial that you're going through. And it probably in this context wouldn't be an entire lifetime of enduring the trial, because it's presupposing that you're going to be getting through this trial and having victory and standing in victory over it, even in the natural. Here in verse 7 says, so that the proof of your faith, being more precious than gold, which is perishable, even though tested by fire, may be found to result in praise and glory and honor at the revelation of Jesus Christ. Like I said, at the revelation of Jesus Christ. One way that I was taking that was when he was revealed at the second coming. But another thought that this could lend to is that the revealing of him as he's revealed through and after the trial. So that salvation that we have from the trial, once we get through it, there is that revelation of Jesus and that he is all conqueror and all powerful and has already, won the victory for us. And so this is just another way to look at it. And like I said, I don't know exactly which one is correct, but I wanted to present this other side. And I've actually learned my lesson here. I'm going to wait to go through this with my guys before I go ahead and film a video. I think it's so important that we study the scriptures together, because these type of points get brought up and challenge us and help us to really see that maybe our line of thinking isn't the only line of thinking, and it opens up our minds to be able to see something else in the verse that we didn't originally see. So sorry for the interruption. On with the regular programming. All right, let's move on to verse 8 now. And though you have not seen him, you love him. And though you do not see him now, but believe in him, you greatly rejoice with joy inexpressible and full of glory. Okay, there is a lot to tackle with this one. I think we should start with the fact that this is a very relatable thing for us in the 21st century. Because for most of us, there are some people who have had divine experiences where they have, been face to face with Jesus. But for most of us, we have not seen him with our natural eyes. And so just like Peter is saying here in verse 8, and though you have not seen him, you love him, this is sort of our experience too. I personally haven't had an encounter like that with the Lord, but yet I love the Lord with all of my heart, with all of my soul, with all my mind, and with all of my strength. And it's really taken God to give me that faith in order to even do that in the first place. But I think we should take courage with this, that there's actually great blessing in the fact that we have not seen him, but yet we love him. It's really, in a sense, a big part of having faith. Hebrews 11:1 says, now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. And so with Jesus, we have that's what faith is. It's this assurance of something hoped for, this convictions of something that's not been seen with our natural eye, but yet we're completely giving our life to it. Here in the notes, you can read through John chapter 20, verse 24 through 29. I'll just paraphrase a little bit here, but Jesus himself commemorates really everyone in history that hasn't seen him with his eyes, but yet still has faith in him when he's talking to Thomas. Now, Thomas, he gets kind of dubbed with a harsh name, with being called Doubting Thomas. He doubted this part in his life, and it's kind of stuck with him forever. So I think he's gotten a bad rep, but whatever. That's neither here nor there. But he doubted, and he's like, I actually have to put my hand in his side. Like I got to see the holes in his hand from those nails. And Jesus is like, Thomas, okay, here you go. You see me. But man, blessed are those who don't have this experience and still love me and still trust me and still put their faith in me. And so I've had many times where I've just been like, God, I just want to see you. I want to be like Moses, who spoke to him face to face as a friend. Like, why won't you just do that for me? And I think that there are definitely times where the Lord wants to do that with people, but there's also some sort of beauty in this aspect of faith where we have not seen, but yet we believe, and we give our life to something that we have not fully seen with our natural eye. All right, and though you do not see him now, but believe in him, you greatly rejoice with joy inexpressible and full of glory. I want to turn real quickly here to the book of John, chapter 15, verse 10 through 11. This is Jesus talking. He says, "If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love." Here's the part that really grips me. "These things I have spoken to you so that my joy," this is Jesus' joy, "may be in you, and that your joy may be made full." What in the world does that mean? Jesus's joy. So, like the epicenter of joy, the epicenter of pleasure is God. And he's saying, "My joy," this is Jesus talking to us, "will be in you." Like you have that opportunity to experience the fullness of joy. I don't even know if I can really say much on that. Just that thought really just continues to perplex me in a way, because fullness of joy is something that I so deeply want in my life. Now, we must determine that joy does not always mean like really comfortable circumstances in our life. Sometimes that joy and happiness thing gets mixed up a little bit. We think that we have to be happy and in a good mood, and everything's got to be going right for us in order to have joy. And that's not what he's talking about here. He's talking about joy even in the midst of sufferings, even in the midst of a lot of difficulties. There's just this inherent thing inside of you, this joy epicenter given to you by the Holy Spirit from Jesus himself, that you get to abide in. And so to be able to have that joy is just such a precious gift this side of eternity, and something that we will experience and will be extrapolated and expounded upon for our entire time that we live in heaven. All right, obtaining as the outcome of your faith the salvation of your souls. This is verse 9 here. And here I really want to break down this word salvation. So, salvation is a very, very power packed word. But I have, and from what I've read from other commentaries and Bible studies that I've done, is that it expresses itself in three ways. So there's three different types of expression of this word salvation. There's justification, there's sanctification, and then there is glorification. And I'm going to take a couple minutes just to break down those three terms and what they mean, and then what is in view with this verse right here. So, justification is we are saved, or we have been saved. We are now justified before God. We are perfect in his sight through the blood of Christ. Legally, we are citizens of the kingdom of heaven. And really to continue to lean on that point, even in failure, even in times where you're not getting it completely, that is a great source of hope, knowing that, okay, I messed up, I can press that delete button, I'm justified in the sight of God. I am going to just approach his throne boldly, not because of my own works, but because of what Christ has done for me. We see justification laid out in Ephesians 2, verse 8. "For by grace you have been," get that word have been, past tense, "saved through faith, and that not of yourselves. It is the gift of God." All right, now our second part of salvation here is sanctification. And I'll read the Bible verse first, and then we'll talk about it here. 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 18. "For the word of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to those who are being saved," get that, being saved, "it is the power of God." And so I scratch my head a little bit with that one, going like, okay, so we have been saved, but yet we are being saved. Like, what does that all mean? I think that it's important to start out by saying that our human intellect is like so minuscule compared to the abundant, omniscient, all-knowing, all-powerful God, who in 7 days created heavens and earth and the universe and planets and galaxies and all this stuff. And so I think that you're never going to fully understand something this side of eternity, but it is important, I think, that we search it out. We try to figure it out a little more. And there's plenty of areas in the Bible where it says, ask for wisdom and really search these things out. And so I think it's important that we do that. And so this part of being saved is sanctification. And what that is becoming more and more like Jesus, if we're going to put it in real layman's terms. And so we have been saved. So now we have the right for forever to be with God. We have actually been given Christ's identity of perfection, because that's who we are now in the sight of God. But yet, I'm sure the experience is the same for you as it is for me. we face different things where we continue to sin and we continue to mess up. And so, how do those two things correlate? Well, we definitely have been saved and received that, but there is this continual walking out of our salvation. And so that's the sanctification process, basically being conformed to the image of Christ. And that is going to be a constant trajectory for us throughout entire life until we die. And our goal in that is just to become more and more like Jesus every day in everything we say and everything that we do. All right, so this final part of salvation is glorification. Romans chapter 5, verse 8 and 9. But God demonstrates his own love toward us, in that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. Much more than, having now been justified by his blood, it's talking about the past tense there, we shall be saved, now going into the future, from the wrath of God through him. So it's talking about this shall be saved in the fact that there is a future salvation for us in our glorification. And so that is when, life here on earth, as we know it at least, is over and we are glorified. We receive a new heavenly glorified body and we are with him forever. And so that is that future tense of our salvation, glorification. Actually, here in verse 9, that is what is being said. So we had to kind of go back to the basics to get to this point, but I wanted to really lay out for you those three different expressions of salvation because it can be confusing at times as you're reading your Bible and you're going, okay, so we have been saved, we are being saved, we will be saved. What is it, God? It's all of them in one. And so just continue to think about that as you're reading through it and you continue to see the word salvation. Okay, what tense is this in? Is this my glorification in the future? Is this my sanctification that I'm working through now? Is this my justification that I experienced when I first became a believer? It's just important to know that and will really help you interpret different passages in Scripture. All right, we got just a couple of minutes left, so I am going to rifle through this. Verse 10. As to this salvation, the prophets who prophesied of the grace that would come to you made careful searches and inquiries, and I'm going to combine this with verse 11, seeking to know what person or time the Spirit of Christ within them was indicating, as he predicted the sufferings of Christ and the glories to follow. Make sure to read the notes on this fully to be able to get a lot better understanding, but a couple of things that I just want to hit on here first is that the prophets, how were they receiving this information? It was from the Spirit of Christ. Christ is the same today, yesterday, and forever. And so sometimes there's this misinterpretation that the Old Testament is like totally different from the New Testament. Like Old Testament God and New Testament God, they're different people, they're different things. No, we see right here that even in the Old Testament, the Spirit of Christ, which is the Holy Spirit, was working through these prophets, and they were trying to discern and decipher. And I love the way that it says it here. It says that they made careful searches and inquiries. And so I believe that the Holy Spirit speaks to us now as well. And it is so vital that we take what he is sharing with us and we make those careful searches and inquiries. I think it's important that we go deep and really trying to figure out and understand what the Holy Spirit is saying to each one of us. All right, and then to end us here, verse 12, it was revealed to them that they were not serving themselves, but you in these things, which now have been announced to you through those who preach the gospel to you by the Holy Spirit, sent from heaven, things into which angels long to look. So these prophets knew, like, hey, this isn't really for us. This is going to be for future generations ahead of us. And so I like to think about, even with what I'm doing right now, and who knows how many future generations we have until the coming of Christ, but I love to think, hey, I might not only just be serving my generation now, but I could be serving generations for times to come. That's a great thought that keeps me encouraged. And then also preached the gospel to you by the Holy Spirit. So the gospel that was preached to these people, the audience in First Peter, it wasn't just men just sharing the gospel. Whenever we're sharing the gospel and bringing the good news, we have this opportunity to connect to the Holy Spirit and to actually have the Holy Spirit be speaking through us, using us as his mouthpiece, basically. And I've got a lot of verses and text to look at that in the notes, so make sure to take a look at that. But we have run out of time here, and so just wanted to thank you for staying through this with me. Make sure to go through those notes, read through them again, take a good look at them, and we'll see you for session 3 next week.